a moving target of measuring yourself against what other authors, other creatives have. So you have to find that thing that defines success for you, that you have control of, because you don't have control of anything outside of the words that you write. The rest of it is really not in your control. You can't control the reception. You can't control the sales. You can't control how people publish you. You can publish yourself and control parts of that, but you still can't control who picks up the story, reads it, loves it, shares it.
New York Times best-selling author and host of A Word on Words, J.T. Ellison. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been excited about this for weeks.
Oh, me too. Me too. And I've got my owl mug today. Sometimes I will bring my mug out and show everybody. So I thought this was bookish. I don't know why.
That's adorable. And I before I show you mine, I actually have a thing for owls because my very first franchise character is an embodiment of Athena. So yeah. So here's mine.
Oh, yes.
Crazy cat lady, which we may be interrupted by cats today. I can never predict what they're going to do.
I love your cats, and I love all the posts that you share about your cats. So they
they have attitude. They should have had their own Twitter feed or Instagram feed or TikTok. I probably would have, got a gazillion.
They need their own show. You need to do something like this.
So, Jameson, how are you feeling today? Blank.
All right. I brought as many as I could hold without dropping them. So we're going to do a little fanned out JT Ellison showcase right here.
That's fun.
This is one of my favorites for sure.
I like that one too. That was my first standalone.
I know. That was
exciting. Very first one. Took forever to write.
Yes. Oh, man. Well, tell me when you knew that you wanted to be a writer.
Gosh, I've just like almost everybody, I've always been a writer. When I was little, I was writing poetry and little short stories, and I have a little bound book, and it's called The Samaritan Part 2. I don't know what happened to Part 1, but Part 2 about this guy named Max who goes to Mars and gets lost there and left behind. I was like, I wrote The Martian when I was like 6. Oh my God. How awesome would that have been? But I've always wanted to. I wrote all through school. I got a double major in politics and creative writing. But it was not my path out of college. So I came back to it 8 years later, and oh, wow. That moment of writing that first paragraph, I told my husband I want to write a book, and he was like, go for it. I had just had back surgery. I had nothing else to do. And just that first paragraph, I burst into tears when I hit the period because I'd been away from it for so long. And I mean, purposely pushing it away, not allowing the muse anywhere near me because I had gotten hurt by it so badly. So it's a lifelong thing that I came back to when I was, in my late 20s and really embraced it going forward.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And shout out to your husband for supporting you, because
oh, absolutely.
That is a common theme that comes up on the show a lot, is the lack of support that a lot of creatives feel, or this need to please other people or to fit some sort of mold, or they're just discouraged. And I know I have felt it. I've even had friends, discourage me from creative pursuits. And we've had a lot of different people on the show. It just keeps coming up that there is a common theme with creatives that, there's an endeavor they want to pursue and they just feel alone, or they just don't feel that support. So I know there was a time in your life where someone kind of told you, you don't need to be doing this thing, but you went and did it anyway. And so what inspired you and propelled you forward in that?
It's very interesting that you say that, because I didn't know it then, but I do know it now. And it's something that let's talk about this because I think it's really important. It's other people's resistance to the creative life. It's other people's idea of, oh my gosh, sitting down for 4 hours and typing and telling a story. I could never do that. So my immediate reaction is negative towards you doing that. Julia Cameron talks about it in The Artist's Way. The people around you and their resistance and how it can kill your spirit dead if you let it. Yeah, I had my thesis advisor in college. I wanted to go and get an MFA, and she said, "You're not good enough to get published." And I mean, that's not what you want to hear after you've spent 21 years dedicating your life to writing. You're not good enough. It's like, wow. But I believed her because I trusted her. She was someone I greatly respected. I thought that she, if anybody knew, it would be her, right? If she could judge my work, it would be the person who had been judging it for the past, semester. And so I went and got a master's in political management at George Washington instead, met my husband first night of class. So, everything happens for a reason, right? It's, we were meant to be, and he is the greatest support and has been from day one. My parents were thrilled when I came back to writing because they both encouraged it when I was growing up. They let me read anything I could get my hands on the bookshelf, which really, really helped. But going into adulthood, going into a marriage, because we got married 3 years to the day after we met, going into that and being a creative who is not creating can be really stifling and really difficult emotionally and mentally. I think when we don't honor that creative spirit, it can drive us a little bit crazy. I think I probably drove him pretty crazy. So by the time I said, I want to write a book, he was like, oh God, please.
Do it.
You take those voices and put them on the page and stop telling me over dinner all these weird stories. Go tell somebody else. But seriously, he just from day one said, do it. I got your back. And I've been incredibly, incredibly blessed with that because I know not a lot of artists have that.
Yeah. And, I'm sitting here thinking, what is the measurement supposed to be as to whether or not we pursue something? Because, do we need to be the best at something? My answer to that is no. And I feel like, because you mentioned being told that, and there are a lot of people being told you're not good enough for this. But if it's something they love, if it's something that that lights us up inside,
mm-hmm.
and, maybe we don't pursue it professionally, maybe we do, but, to kind of burn that fire out, to put that fire out completely and then shelf that passion, whatever it is, that is very stifling. And that is very, it can be heartbreaking. I mean, it's like you're turning off a part of yourself. And then you have people who years later, just still have that desire and that ache to do something. They have a regret and I don't remember who it was. I was talking with someone the other day about regrets, later on in life, things that you wanted to do when you were younger and maybe you just didn't do because various reasons, lack of support, you didn't think you were good enough and things like that. So, that's one of the things the show does is to encourage people to pursue these things and trying to build a community, which can be hard, that supports each other, and also being willing to support other people that maybe are succeeding in something at a different level than where we might want to be at the same time can be very hard too.
Oh, there is nothing more frustrating. You really have to decide what success looks like for you. And that's, it's a kind of a moving target because, okay, you want to finish a book. Okay, now you finish the book. Now what's next? I need to get an agent. Okay, now I've got an agent. What's next? Now I get a book deal. Now I want a bigger advance. I want to make the New York Times. I want to get a movie deal. Just it's a moving target of measuring yourself against what other authors, other creatives have. So you have to find that thing that defines success for you that you have control of, because you don't have control of anything outside of the words that you write, the rest of it is really not in your control. You can't control the reception. You can't control the sales. You can't control how people publish you. You can publish yourself and control parts of that, but you still can't control who picks up the story, reads it, loves it, shares it. So you have to just decide early on, what is your goal? Goals are great, but what's going to make you feel successful on your path to those goals? And I mean, for me, it's finishing. Finishing is everything. Finishing a short story. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000 words, if I'm finishing a blog piece, if I'm finishing a novel, whatever that is, that's where I measure my success. It's like, okay, yes, it's done. I've typed my 3-pound signs and I'm done. And that's the thing for me, right? But it took me a while to figure that out.
Well, what a great piece of advice, because a great place to start is just finishing those projects that we all have. I'm going to assume we all do. I hope we all do, because I know I have all kinds of different creative projects that I have started and have not finished, and so go and finish some things. Go revisit the painting that's half painted. Go, revisit the poem that you never finished, or whatever the thing may be, the song, and just finish something. And then maybe the process of finishing that will inspire you for something else. And
1,000 times, yes.
Yeah, if that's for you, but that's a great place to start. I think that's one of the best things that we've had in this discussion of it yet, is go and finish the thing. And then I would say that, even if we have support from people around us, a lot of times that inner voice, that self-criticism, and I know, and I struggle with this all the time, that you have no business doing this. Why are you doing this? You're not, this is rubbish. Why are you doing, And so what do we do as creatives how do we work on daily talking to ourselves better, using a better inner dialogue with our creative pursuits and the things that we're trying?
That's an excellent question, because it's just our inner child, right? It's the critical voice, the editorial voice, that voice that says you're not good enough. This is trash. Why are you even trying? I mean, that's just somebody's, and you need to identify who in your life, where that happened first.
Well, that's a good
right.
idea.
So you go back and find who was that first person that said, "Oh, why are you doing this?" And then you need to stifle that voice. You need to take that voice. I had a great exercise that a therapist gave me once. You take that person, you put them in a glass jar, you screw on the lid, and you put them in the back of the room, and they can talk all they want, but you can't hear them because they're in a glass jar with a lid on.
I can't hear you.
La, 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 la. Right? It actually works. It works really, really well. I got through a few books like that the critical voice was so incredibly loud, and it's just, and that's natural though. That's something you need to recognize it's gonna happen, and you have to find ways to ignore it. That was interesting.
Music.
Cha-ching! That was a bonus answer there.
Well, and how interesting that we obviously for various reasons, but we listen to that voice more than the supportive voices.
Oh, 1,000, always. It's that's so much, because doing the work is hard. And if everybody could do it, everybody would, and not everybody can. And it doesn't get any easier is the other part of it. It doesn't matter how many times you've finished. It doesn't get easier. It actually gets harder. And oh my gosh, God forbid you have something that's successful, that is critically successful, monetarily successful, that the readers love, that you have a breakout book. Oh my gosh, that's the worst. It's almost the worst thing that can happen, because then the critical voice goes, "Oh, you're never going to do this again. You're never going to do anything that's nearly as good as this. So why are you even trying?" That's a whole different set of problems.
That's pressure. That's pressure to then surpass the thing that you did. And then almost like putting a block up, like, I can't do it. Or what am I doing here? Or am I really, should I be doing this? And you go back to that same voice again when you did it.
Yeah, you just had this huge success.
Yeah.
Hooray. And instead of celebrating, it's, yeah, good luck ever doing that again.
Oh,
Yeah, we're so mean to ourselves.
we are.
I always say my boss is such a bitch.
Yes. I don't know if there's an easy answer on how to get past, this. I think it is a daily working on it, surrounding ourselves with people where we can, being willing to discuss these things.
Mm-hmm.
I already talked about this once, already in season 3 of vocalizing our struggles, because, and I'll say it again for anyone watching, that I struggle with that so much. I keep things on the inside. I'm going to take care of it myself. I'm going to handle this on my own, instead of, when I'm struggling, saying it out loud, finding people that I can talk to, that I can confide in and say, I am really, really having a hard time with this today or right now, or this is what I'm going through, and just saying it out loud and getting it out there and releasing some of that burden. It's very, very difficult to do that. And I think it's very important to release the burden, but also to build our community of support, because then we're not going to feel so alone, because this person over here or that person over there is probably going through something very similar as. And then, we get to talk about it, but we hold so much in. And I speak for myself. I hold a lot in.
No, I do too. I mean, that's Nora Roberts spoke to RWA several years ago, and she said, you have to find a small, tiny little group of people that you trust implicitly, that you can discuss your contracts, you can discuss what's happening with your relationships with your editor, with your agent, you can discuss your creative life and the things that are working and not. You have to find that group, and that is some of the best advice that I think I ever got, because I did find that group that, of people that I trust, that I know I can call and say, okay, I've hit a wall. Here's what's going on. And they'll come back and say, all right, well, let's talk about this. What do you need? What can we do to help? That's just invaluable, because we suffer in silence. It's like anything that we don't want to appear vulnerable. We're in a curated world, a world that is designed algorithmically to reward things that look pretty and special and important, right? Yes. It is very rare that we have somebody saying, okay, I'm having a terrible day. And I mean, people actually do kind of love that, but in a very perverse way. Do you see that? I mean, do you ever see that? It's like, it doesn't feel genuine when you say, oh, I'm having such a hard time. And half the people are like, oh, yeah, right. And half of them are like, oh, you poor thing. And none of it feels real.
Yeah. Or someone asks you how you're doing and you're actually very honest with the answer. And
yeah, you say the truth.
I didn't know you were going to be honest. Wait, I wasn't expecting all that. Hang on.
Wow. I don't have time for a meeting right now. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so, and I think you elaborated a little bit on this already, but how did you come to that? What was that defining moment for you when you knew this was the right path to be on, that writing was it, that was who you are, and this was what you needed to do?
It was. Okay, so I'll tell you how I came back to the page. We moved to Nashville. I'm like a bad country music song. We moved to Nashville. I couldn't find a job. We lived somewhere where I didn't know anyone. I couldn't really make any friends. I'm a total introvert, so like going out and making friends, not exactly my forte. My cat died. And I went to work I finally found a job at a vet, thinking they were going to put me in the front desk. I would meet people, but instead they put me in the back, and that was not my place. So I knew, like, at the end of the day, Monday, I was going to quit on Friday, but I wanted to give them a whole week. And sure enough, on Wednesday, I picked up a dog and I blew out a disc in my back and had to have surgery. While I was recovering from the surgery, I went to the library and asked them. I was really into Patricia Cornwall and Tammy Hogue and Lisa Unger and Lisa Jackson and all of Alex Kava, Erica Spindler. I was really into the crime fiction. And she said, have you read John Sanford? I'm like, no. Gave me the first 3 books in the Praise series. And by the end of the 3rd book, I was like, this is it. This is it. I want to do this. I want to write again. And Taylor was born, my Athena. She sprang fully formed from my head on the way to rehab on Interstate 40. She was half cop, half rock star. She was the savior of Nashville. She was the warrior goddess of Nashville. And if you look at my work, there's a lot of mythological themes deep in the work. But she is my most obvious of those. And it just happened from there. But it's not like I wrote the book and it got published. I mean, it was a journey. It took multiple. I actually wrote half a book. I didn't know it was half a book. I wrote 45,000 words, thought it was a novel, sent it to every editor in New York. That didn't go well, but I got 2 positive rejections of, you've got a really great writing style, but there's nothing original about this. Okay. So that tiny bit of encouragement, right? That itsy bitsy bit. So by then I had finally found out that there was a whole writing world out there. I joined Sisters in Crime. I became part of their Guppies chapter. I got some beta readers, learned that a novel was actually 100,000 words, not 45, and rewrote it. So now I actually had something, and I was getting ready to query. And Publishers Marketplace has this cool function. I think it still has it, that you can mark that you're looking for an agent. So I had marked that. And I had my list, and I had the number 1 agent that I wanted. And out of the blue, his office wrote me and said, hey, we're interested in looking at this. Sure enough, they took it, and I signed with them, and we did major revisions, and he sent it out, and it didn't sell. It didn't sell. And I was completely heartbroken again, because nope, I wasn't good enough to get published.
Oh.
But he said, write me another book. And so I did. And that was All the Pretty Girls. And when he sent that out, Linda McFall at Mira wrote him that night and said, don't sell this to anyone else.
Oh, awesome.
And the next thing I knew, I had a 3-book deal, and the rest is history. So it's been a series of rejections and failures and impediments and speed bumps. It was not an easy path. It happened quickly. I mean, over a few years, but it wasn't the easiest path.
Yeah. And I wonder how many writers give up after that first rejection, not from an agent, but they get an agent and think that it's a done deal now. I'm in. And the first book gets sent out and it still gets rejected. I mean, I wonder how many people give up after that, and sort of how do we know that we're on that right path, or that how do we encourage ourselves to continue on? Because I think if you love something, if you wake up every day and you have a drive to do that, even when you're beating yourself up, to me, that lets me know that's something you need to pursue, because whether you do anything with it or not, that is part of who you are. That's your inner person, and that's how they're trying to get out. And so, yeah, how do we as creatives, what can we leave people with in that area to kind of help them keep going?
It's really hard. I think there's a lot of attrition at that point. There's a lot of agents who walk away at that point. I mean, I was incredibly lucky to have an agent who, saw something in the work and felt like there was more, that could happen there. So, again, I got a little bit lucky in a couple of places, but you gotta write for yourself. You've got to believe in yourself. The passion for your work will come through. You have to, like Stephen King says, you got to know the rules, right? You've got to know the rules. So you know when to break them. The best advice all along that I've ever gotten was from Stuart Woods, who just passed away, who told me the only rules are those you create page by page, which is phenomenal advice. But it only works if you know what rules that you can break from the beginning. So you have to, if you're getting a million rejections, okay, something's wrong with the story, something's wrong with your query. Step back, find someone else to read it, get a beta reader, get an editor, something. There's a reason. It could be timing. It could be, the reason doesn't mean that it's not good. This is a bizarrely arbitrary industry, right? It's completely unpredictable.
It is. Yeah. And then there's, all the different, the currents and the market changes so much, so shifting. So, and you do a great job of just going with the market so well. You have branded yourself so well.
Thanks.
You're a great business model for authors to follow. And I think that having people to look up to and to kind of view as a mentor is very important, to say, you can do this, and just keep, if it's something you love, keep going. I don't know. I feel like maybe if it's something that you have a fire and a passion for, that right there should just signify this is right. Keep
mm-hmm.
Even if just for yourself. And I think at the end of the day, ultimately, you need to do it for you first, and not allow other people to kind of shape that too much. In the core of that, it needs to be you and not trying to please others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you also, it's really funny that you mentioned that. And thank you. That's a lovely compliment. I too have people that I look up to, that I watch, and I say, okay, how are they doing it? What are they doing? What is happening in their creative life? And I read their books, and I extrapolate from their work, what's happening, and hopefully grow as a writer as they grow as a writer. And maybe I'm pulling somebody up as and maybe we're all just kind of going together. I truly believe a rising tide lifts all boats. So I think it's important that we have that community, right? That we have the people to look up to.
Yes, we need that community. And I think, yes, it's a constant studying and education. Like we're always going to be learning new things, and that's very important to follow that. Like you said, to just keep looking at what other people are doing and see what works, and then being willing to try new things if something's not working. I am very much, I don't know if it's my type A or if it's just that I'm very stubborn, but I am very much like, I get in that comfort zone. I get in something that's like, I don't want to branch out over here. I don't like change. I like, but sometimes we have to step out and try something new. So that's important.
It is. It is. Yeah. I've never wanted, I probably would have been way more successful if I had stuck with one thing. You see the ginormous brands, they're doing the same sort of book again and again. The readers adore them because they know what they're going to get. And there's something really powerful about that. That's why I read Diana Gabaldon. I know exactly what I'm going to get. Even though the series is growing, she's still doing the same thing. Same people, same tropes, same problems, same, but different. And that's, isn't that what everybody wants? You want the same, but different.
How do you handle criticism, or what advice can you give to us to that outside criticism that's going to come in?
Well, not everybody is going to love everything that you do. That's just, there is nobody is universally liked. No story is universally liked. For every 5-star review that I love, and it's like, oh my God, they get it. There's a 1-star review that I'm like, oh my God, did you even read the same book? If you believe the good, you have to believe the bad. If you believe the bad, you have to believe the good. So, I have actually learned some really important lessons from some of the 1-star reviews I've gotten over the years, because, there's the person that leaves a review and you go and you look and they've also reviewed a carton of milk and you're like, I don't know that I really am going to take that person, seriously, right? That's not exactly my target audience. But there are people who they love story, they understand story, and something in your story doesn't work for them on an elemental level. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm going to pay attention to that. That's the kind of thing that I'm going to walk away and go, okay, that's not a terrible point. Usually it's something that I've already identified for myself and in the process and couldn't get to, right? Or chose not to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I think that is such a great way to approach it. And what can I take from this? And again, sometimes you just have to say, well, that we're just coming from two ends of the spectrum. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to reach that person and that's all right. But sometimes it's, let me reevaluate this here. What could I have done differently here? And then I always have one that I would just say, if someone if they had such an emotional response, if they read the entire thing that I wrote, they stuck around to the end.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They had such an emotional response that they felt the need to leave a negative review or, then, I mean, obviously I reached something in there, like there, I was able to pull an emotional response from them, even though
Sure.
I affected them in some way. So I try to kind of spin it that way too. But I think exactly what you said is get there.
It depends though. If somebody is coming directly into my inbox with something nasty, with a nasty gram, that's a whole different story, right? Because they've now invaded your space and attacked you in a way.
Yeah, that's brazen. That's not
right. Or when they tag you in the 1-star review on Instagram. It's like, why are you tagging me? I mean, that's kind of rude. But I have been known to respond and say, wow, do you feel better now that you told me off? Did you get that out of your system? Do you want to actually talk about what bothered you about this now? I have actually become friends with people that did that.
I think if you're tagging someone in that, that's an invite into a conversation. Otherwise, why would you tag them in that? Is it just so they can see this thing that you wrote? Like, yeah, that's a whole, I think that's a whole different spectrum. And I think definitely there is real nastiness out there that we to experience. And sometimes you just have to block that out because that negativity will eat you alive. And you can't, that is no definition of who we are as creatives at all.
No, not at all. I mean, and you can tell. I mean, you can tell. I have a really thick skin. So there are some that I get that I just laugh. I'm like, oh my God, she really hated this book. Wow. And then there are the ones that it's like, okay, this is a legit concern and I'm going to go address it. And that's, that makes me a better writer, right? But I don't recommend people read their reviews. I mean, I'm one of the weird ones that I take something away from it, both good and bad. If I'm feeling really high on myself, I might go look at a 1-star review and remind myself, see, all things being equal, right? Equilibrium is very important.
Yes. Oh man. Well, okay. I have to shift over to something totally different right now, and because I love food, and apparently you love food and like making beautiful recipes. Because now a lot of your posts make me really hungry, and I'm craving a peach tart as of yes.
Oh my gosh, that peach upside down cake is insane. It is so good. It is so good.
I posted a limoncello recipe that I have saved for later somewhere. I hope that I saved.
It's time. Actually, September is the best time to start making your limoncello. It'll be ready for Christmas to give as hostess gifts.
Oh man. Okay. I have been wanting to make a limoncello cake for years. Since the time I visited Amalfi, and I still haven't made that cake, but it's on my list. So I'm going to do it. But yeah, tell me about food blogging and the recipes that you're making. Just real quick. I had to throw that in there because it's very interesting. And I love that we share that passion for food.
I don't know about you, but I use it for stress relief. I love to cook. On Thursday when the Queen passed, my husband came home and he was like, "Hey, do you want to go for a walk?" And I looked at him like, "I'm making French onion soup. I can't go for a walk. What are you talking about? It's going to take an hour to caramelize the onions and get on. He was like, okay, okay, I understand.
Process here.
I've got it. And when he came back, I'm like, I needed to cook. And he goes, hon, I'm really glad that you just don't go, I need to bake, because then I'd weigh 1,000 pounds.
That's my catharsis, is the baking. So, I try not.
I love baking too. I just love, I love all of it. I love cooking. I love baking. I'm Italian, right? It's the Italian in me. I need food. I need to make food for people and share food with people. It's the love language of my people. It's just one of those things that it's such a stress reliever. There's something very, very somatically relaxing about chopping an onion.
Yeah. Yes. I love just all the lines, and then the dicing and the movements, and okay, I get it. All right. We are on the same page.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I started years and years and years and years ago, started putting a recipe in my week or my monthly newsletter just for value add. Cause I mean, how many times can you say, hey, I've got a new book coming out, right? And I wanted to maintain and grow an audience. And food is a wonderful connector. As it turns out, over the course of that time, I found out I had celiac disease. And so now all of my recipes have that edge to them, right? You can make it the normal way, but here's the gluten-free way or the soy-free way. And that's, that's become an interesting challenge to me, to find the recipe and adapt it to be something that my husband and I can both eat and not get sick. It's kind of important. Yeah. So foods now can both hurt me and help me, which has become an interesting component. So yes, I moved all of my recipes into a lovely blog format. My assistant did it. I shouldn't say I did it. Into a lovely blog format on thewinevixen.com. I was doing weekly wine recommendations, and so now the recipes are on there too. And it's just kind of a one-stop shop. I would love to do a cookbook one day, but
that's my next question. Okay.
You have to have like a real platform to do something like this. This is just for fun, right? This is just for fun. You have to really, the food bloggers are, my goodness, that is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. It's a full-time gig. And I just am doing it for fun. It's just for fun and to share. And, so my brother isn't calling me saying, hey, whatever happened to that French onion soup recipe? It's on the Wine Vixen. Yeah. Go look.
Yeah. So everybody go look, go get some great recipes. It's September. Let's all make limoncello. I'm just putting it there. So absolutely. Okay. Well, you have a book coming out in February.
I do.
These coming up, very exciting. And I'm sorry, I have to look. It's One of Us. My brain froze. I hate when I'll cut that part out. I hate when my brain freezes like that. But it's
why? I mean, my gosh, that's normal. It's human. God, don't be human.
It's true. It is. Yeah, it's normal. We're not supposed to know everything all at once, right? No, but tell me about this story and maybe some inspiration behind it.
So it's really interesting. I've noticed myself say this time and again when I'm talking about my standalones. It was 5 years in the making. Well, this one was 10 years in the making. It was really almost 15 years in the making. It's One of Us is at its heart the story of a young married couple who are suffering from infertility. The book opens with the police knocking on their door to let the husband know that his biological son is the suspect in a murder. The problem is he doesn't have any children. And as we will find out very quickly, he did a sperm donation many, many years ago, and the company was not the most ethical with the use of his sperm, and he has 19 children at count that they have found. It is an incredibly wild story. And it is also very, very much my story and my husband's story. We struggled with infertility for a very long time. I could get pregnant with no problem. I could not stay pregnant. And I had a lot of miscarriages over a decade. And it was something that I knew I needed to write. I needed to exercise the demon, exorcise the demon. And that's how I work through a lot of my stuff. Nobody really knew this was going on. We didn't share it with a lot of people because it's just, there's been a stigma around this for so long. I think that's starting to go away. I kind of love the Instagram community and how, people are being much more open, especially when you're doing IVF, because wow, I mean, that is just a study in heartbreak. It's hard, no matter if you end up with a child or not. It's an incredibly difficult process. And, when we started trying, I made a joke. I'm like, we're either going to get pregnant the first time or we're going to end up doing IVF. And both happened. So it was a lovely parentheses, start and end. But this story, I couldn't find my way to the story. There was something very just stupidly funny that happened. In all tragedy, there is humor. Something stupidly funny that happened while we were going through this, that my husband came home and he's like, you got to get this in a book. I'm like, all right. And we've held on to that this whole time. So it is now in the book. It is now a part of the book. And it is just, it's really funny for us, but it probably is not so funny for anybody else, but it was really funny for us. Olivia was the catalyst. Olivia is the main character in this story. And she appeared to me very much like Taylor appeared to me all those years ago. Olivia appeared to me, and she was walking down a beach alone, and she was obviously dreadfully sad. And I was so taken with her. Why are you sad? What is wrong? And I finally figured out at the very, very, very end of the book, when I finally was able to put that scene in, why she was so sad. And it just, that was a fun full circle moment. But, this is a different kind of book for me. It's much more a book club kind of book that you can really put yourself in the situation. What would I do if this were me? If this was my marriage, if this was my life, if this was happening to me, what would I do? Which I think is a really fun way to have an interactive story with the readers.
Yeah, well, yes. Yeah. All of those what ifs and, oh man. And that was kind of the thing with No One Knows. There were a lot of questions like, how would I handle this? So I love when a story can do that and really draw you in. And then it kind of like you're comparing yourself to the main character. You almost feel like you're right next to that main character and you're going through all of that, like, ooh, so that's, those are the books that I love the best too, that I can see myself in the characters. And I love writing cops and detectives and spies and assassins. Those are fun, right? They're very easy to write. Not easy, nothing's easy to write, but they're easier to write because when you get into trouble, when in doubt, bring in a man with a gun, right? You can always kill somebody and make the story move along. Right. It's awful. Somebody needs to die now.
Standalones are different. They are very, very different. It's a completely different animal, and I have a lot more trouble with them than I do with the series. But that said, I just finished a series title that was kicked my butt from start to finish. So every book is different, but it is that commonality, that universality that I think really gets people talking about a book. And I'm hopeful that is something that I'm going to deliver in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell me a little bit about, or just tell me the inspiration behind Two Tails Press and just some motivation that you can give to other people who may be thinking about doing something like that.
So Two Tails was originally designed to publish my own work, specifically No One Knows, and the very first Taylor Jackson novel, Field of Graves, that didn't get published. I'm fascinated by publishing. I'm fascinated by the business. I unfortunately am like 49, 51 business creative. And some days I'm more 51 and some days I'm more 49. It just depends. So I wanted to see how the process worked. And Two Tails is if you look closely at the logo, it's the two tails of my two twin kittens, but it's also there's a very pale gray tail in there and an ear in there, that is their fairy god cat Jade, who was Thriller Cat. She was my muse and she sat on every manuscript that I sent out. And when I lost her, I couldn't not. So the logo of Two Tails has her in it. It was very important to me. But the press itself is a indie press. I did mostly my short stories, and I was gearing up to do Field of Graves and No One Knows. And they both ended up, Simon and Schuster came in and bought No One Knows at the 11th hour. And at the 12th hour, the 11th hour and the 59th minute, Mira came in and bought Field of Graves. So I didn't get to do it, right? I had set up this press and the whole infrastructure and built the whole thing, and I didn't have a book to publish. So I published all my short stories and bundled a few of them, and then have been sort of just sitting on it, waiting for something to happen. And that something was a article in, I don't remember what paper, that the CIA was looking for a librarian. And I went, Jane Bond, CIA librarian, right? It was a total joke. And I sent it to my husband and my assistant. They both came back and said, you got to write that. I'm like, oh yeah, in my spare time, I'm going to start a new series. But as it turns out, right. Yeah. Right. So I put together the proposal for it, and it was a straight up thriller, but lighter, right? Lighter, sillier. It was kind of Gilmore Girls meets Homeland. So you had the serious undertones, but you still had the lighter side of it. Because I was just getting tired of writing super dark stuff. I wanted to write something lighter. And I couldn't make it come together. I couldn't figure it out. I was having a coffee, and a friend of mine was over, a coffee lunch thing, and everybody's supposed to bring their laptops, work for the morning, and then have lunch together. And of course, nobody was working except for two people. And one of them was Alicia Clapique. And I looked over and I'm like, all right, I like her work ethic. And maybe Jane needs to be magical. And poof. Suddenly, that was the course. Jane Thorne, CIA librarian, couldn't do Bond. Jane Thorne, CIA librarian, who is an archive librarian at the Vanderbilt Library, touches a manuscript and is thrown into another world that magic exists. And she's kind of the thunderclap heard round the world, and the good guys and the bad guys come for her, and the CIA is the one that she ends up joining. So she's fighting on the side of good against evil magical terror organizations. And I'm writing it under the name Joss Walker, keeping the names separate because it is such a different world. It's like J.D. Robb and Nora Roberts. You have to have a complete separation. But I haven't hidden that it's me. It's just easier for the algorithms that way. It is so much fun. And now I finally have had some full-length books to publish. And it's just, for a control freak business person, self-publishing is a blast, right? It's a lot of work. There's a lot of learning curve that goes into it. But it is, it's a completely different path to readers. And really, that's all we want in the end. We're just trying to find readers. And it doesn't matter if we're doing it ourselves through, the independent services, or if we're doing it through New York. We're just looking for readers, right? So it is a direct path to the readers, in which I have control over the cover and the release date and things like that is, important.
I can't wait to see what else is coming from that. Do you know how many you're going to be in that series? So I can keep watching what you're doing with it.
Yes. So there's 6 books. We sold the audio rights to Tantor for 6 books. So we know for sure that there are 6 books to start. The second one just came out in July. There's also a mini series. Okay. So this is like inside scoop. I don't know when this is going to release, but
all right, here we go.
Nobody knows this. We're getting ready to announce it.
Are we allowed to tell this? Do I need to?
It depends on when it's happening. No, it's fine. There's a mini series that we're starting that is ancillary to the main series. And the first one in that is coming out probably in the next few weeks. So this is, we're mid-September now. So hopefully by the end of September, beginning of October, that'll be out. Probably the beginning of October, I think is what I'm going to shoot for. Again, here we are, it's done. It's in copy edit right now. How fun, right? It's like, okay, well, it's going to be ahead of schedule. We were supposed to release November 1st. We got done faster than I expected. All right, let's release it October 1st. That's
wait on the process. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the kind of freedom you have when you're running your own press, that you can just be like, okay, I'm going to put it up for sale now instead of waiting. So I'm very excited about that. That's kicking off this new mini series. So there'll be a main novel and then one or two mini series a year. And then there's also a spinoff series from the series. Main series. So we've got a lot going on. I've brought on a brilliant,
Sleep?
I sleep a lot, which is probably why I can be as productive as I am, because I think sleep and water. I mean, you got to have those.
Yes.
But I have a co-writer on this. Her name is R.L. Perez, and she is just, oh my gosh, we create a lot of magic together, quite literally. It is so much fun.
Yes. Wow. Oh man. Well, thank you for the inspiration in that they're showing people that there are multiple paths to go on, and, find what works for you and just navigate that the best you can, and to try different things. And there's not just one way to get it done.
No, there isn't. And anybody that tells you there's only one way is selling you something. Right. I mean, it's nobody really was super excited about me doing a fantasy pen name. I got talk about resistance. I mean, I got a lot of JT, you want to stay in your lane, right? Stay in your lane. You're doing really well in this lane. You're going to, distract yourself by doing this. And when your imagination wants something, sometimes you need to indulge it. And I think that's keeping me fresh and helping me on the regular side of things, the traditional, not fantasy side, thriller side.
Yeah. Well, that just comes full circle. And that's exactly what we need to do. Yeah. You can have more than one lane. I mean, not if you're driving on the interstate. I definitely recommend stay in our lane if we're driving on I-40, but
okay, you want to drive downtown. Some days you want to go Highway 100, and some days you're going to go on 40, and some days you're going to drive down to Franklin first and go and have coffee in a cool coffee shop, and then you're going to go down to, it's anybody that says that there's only one way to go, one way to do things is really, trying to hold you back, and it's their resistance for sure.
Absolutely. And then back to the community building. I think the more avenues you go there, you're opening up to more space for building that community and meeting different people that are going to come in there and be that creative support group.
Right. I haven't had as much opportunity to network as Joss as I would like. I love fantasy. It's one of my favorite things. I think Victoria Aveyard and Leigh Bardugo and Victoria Schwab and, oh my gosh, I could go on and on. Deborah Harkness. I mean, these are my fantasy heroes. Sarah J. Maas. Oh my gosh, yeah. Right? I am such an ACOTAR. Anyway, I haven't had a chance to really explore that side of things. And I would love to be able to do that, because that community is a really fascinating world. And I've just dabbled, I've just put my toe in, but talk about a place you need to be completely authentic. The fantasy world needs serious authenticity. And, they can tell when you're not, 100,000% engaged. So I'm very careful. I haven't really gotten too far into that, but hopefully when we have a few more books and I feel a little more confident about myself in that space.
Well, where can we find you?
So my regular website is jtellison.com. That's for my thrillers and police procedurals and suspense novels. josswalker.com if you like fantasy. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as Thriller Chick. And I've got a Facebook group called The Literati that is just absolute wonderful. Now, and that's where I'm talking about, here's a group that I was able to curate and work with and stuff. They get, early excerpts of books and book covers and, parties and prizes and all kinds of things. So that's a really fun place to be.
Yeah. And that's a great thing, people to branch out and to surround themselves with a lot of that. Go seek out groups like yours. And social media is a great tool for that, to find that online community.
It is. And, I have mixed emotions about social media because of all the things we talked about earlier, the compare and compete and the curation and how it's designed to make us only look good. If you can find those smaller, more intimate groups, that's where the authenticity happens. And I think that's really important for all of this. And in that case, I think social media is a brilliant thing to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. This has been a learning experience for me too. I think I've taken away a lot that I need to apply in my own life and writing. And so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I was looking forward to talking with you.
All right. Well, come back anytime. And
awesome.
Yeah. And until then, you've got like 5,000 books to write. So
I do. I do. Oh my gosh. I have so many books to write.
All right. Well, I will chat with you soon. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks. You too. Take care.